Today, my guest is one of the former singer of the legendary band Cryptopsy. His new kick-ass project name is Akurion, and the first album name Comfort to Me. Please welcome Mike DiSalvo. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Yeah, very well, very well. Thank you.
All right. Thanks to share your time and patience with us. Please explain how the death metal entered in your life and where's come the influence to become a singer.
I've always had an allure for rock drums and, rock guitars and stuff like that. So, early on I was listening to, Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, one of the early ones that I was listening to, Iron Maiden, of course. And, it progresses from these types of bands. And, I would say it progressed pretty quickly. I was listening to, of course, like bands like Dokken, things like this, Rat and all those bands. I went through, a phase of listening to that. I still like all that stuff too, But of course, it becomes a bit heavier and heavier, and I started listening to, Venom and Bathory and SOD, and it just sort of progressed from this point, and it just, Anthrax and Metallica, and of course, and then it just, I would say the style of what I was listening to, of course, hardened, and I immersed myself pretty deeply into death metal and sort of strayed away from a lot of different types of music at the time. I still listen to classic rock and things like that, but I really sort of put my focus on that. I had mutual friends that were listening to that kind of music, of course, as well, and we were sort of the oddballs of the town because they basically called us maggots because we were listening to what they considered scumbag music, right? But for us, it was a deep love, and I had early on, a couple of friends had picked up some instruments, and they started to, start writing riffs or start learning some songs and stuff from Metallica, things like that. And then it progressed. It was like, why don't we, let's find a drummer. And then for myself, I wasn't playing any instruments, so I was like, well, fuck. My buddy had a microphone, and I said, all right, well, let's just fucking, let's just try it. So at that point, it really started from sitting in a basement and just screaming my lungs out and losing my voice and sounding terrible and writing some ridiculously terrible lyrics and it just got to a point where I just I just felt okay. Well, maybe I could learn how to sing properly or learn how to voice myself properly, anyways. And it I would say it took some time. It took a lot of practice. It took a lot of endurance. It took tons of listening to music and trying to form my sound, to try to figure out my voice. And like I said, it's not something that you find overnight. It's something that with through time and through the passion of music, you end up figuring it out, and that's exactly what I did. And, since that point, I'm so happy that I picked up that microphone and said, "Fuck, let's try it. Let's give it a shot."
Did you take any lesson or not?
I have never taken a lesson in my life.
All right, the answer is clear. What the death metal and extreme music bring to you?
Happiness.
All right.
It does. I
fucking love it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I have this conversation with some people who are like, how can you, like coworkers and stuff, like, how the hell can you listen to that music like during the night, or how can you listen to that in the morning? Or I'm like, how? Well, because it calms me down. It actually settles me, Like listening to the bullshit you guys are listening to on the radio right now, this makes me angry, that makes me angry. But to actually sit back and pop on, Death Album or something, or listen to some Neurosis, this is calming to me. It's not. It's never been a situation of like, oh God, it's late, turn it off or whatever. I just love the music. I love extreme music. I love death metal. I love all kinds of metal, and it's something that is a passion, and it's something that will never leave. I'll be 70, 80 years old, and I know I'll still be listening to metal. It's part of who I am.
What is your feeling when you are on stage? Do you liberate something, or are you just adrenalized by the crowd?
That's a good question. Both, I think. It is definitely a release. You get up on stage, and for me, if it's in front of 5 people or 5,000 people, I do get the same emotion from being on stage. It's one of the things that in any project that I've been in, more notably for Cryptopsy, it was always something that we had said was that no matter what amount of people are in the crowd, people are still there to see it. So, through my entire history of all the bands that I've played with and played with live, it has always been a very important piece to make sure that we set it off live and that we come out there strong and we give a performance. We come out, we play, and hopefully you get the reciprocation from a crowd. Sometimes you can get a great crowd, and it's like, I played great shows in front of 25, 30 people, and those 25, 30 people were diehards, and they were going crazy. So it doesn't make a difference of the amount of people who were in the audience per se. You still have to find it in you to be able to come out and be a professional and show them why you're on the road, why you're there, and why you're making records. And I've always been somebody who never took that lightly. I never called it in or dialed it in for shows. That's just not me. But of course, when you've got a crowd, obviously when you've got a crowd that's, if you're playing in front of 1,000 people or something, 500, 5,000, doesn't make a difference. If you're playing in front of a large crowd, yeah, there is an energy that is there just from the mass amount of people. So there's certainly something to be said about that. You do feed off the crowd as well. It isn't the sole thing that's happening. You're not solely feeding off of that. You have to have that passion to step up on that stage to begin with. But certainly, if you've got a crowd that is bang on into it, everyone's on the ball, and you've got that dual energy from stage to floor and floor back to stage, that is something else. If you could can that, man, it would be you'd be a millionaire.
I understand very well. Next question. I'm very curious about the answer. You succeed to Lord Worm. It's one of your best friends, legendary singer of Cryptopsy. You have a lot of hardcore fans. Since today, it's probably for a lot of fans of Cryptopsy, the real singer of this band. So how did you feel in the role of singer of Cryptopsy when you succeed to Lord Worm?
I felt honored. I felt like an absolute honor to step into that role. There was a lot to be said. I've had people ask me sort of similar question with that, and it is something that I have to, I have to look back at and say, if I didn't, let's say I didn't know Lord Worm as I know him, and if this was a situation of walking into this, legendary band and taking the reins, and would it have been more of a difficult process for me? And I don't think it would have. Perhaps it was a bit easier, just in the sense because I already knew the guys anyway. So there is a camaraderie there already. These people, a few of the guys, Flo, I was friends with already, and of course Lord Worm. And Steve as well from before. So I was already, there was already relationships that were built. But had I stepped into the role, I would have approached it the same way. I would have approached it in the manner of, making sure that when I showed up there that I was ultra prepared and I knew, something. For myself, I think I walked in, I knew 3 or 4 songs right off the bat. So, for the track, because I still had to try out for the band. I mean, if I blew it, well, then the gig wasn't mine. So, so for myself, either if I had known those guys or not, I still would have done the same preparations to step into that role because it is a legendary band, or it was, especially at that point. It was, they were right off the heels of None So Vile. The band was on a massive incline at that point. And so for me, it was just to be asked to come down and try out, and be amongst my peers in terms of, professional musicians and people that really wanted it. It felt very welcoming. It felt very homey, just to walk into that room and, see the smiles and, all right, let's go. What songs do you know? You step into it and you just go, I practiced the shit out of those songs. Like I'm not kidding you, Gabe, when I say I probably went through the songs that I had learned probably 100 times, if not more, each. So, I knew the songs through and through and through, and I just did what I just went in and with confidence, and that made the difference. I think, if I had a lack of confidence, or like I said, I hadn't prepared for it, then it would have been trouble, and I know that about myself. So to avoid that, I go in and I prepare, and I was ready, and I wanted that gig. So yeah, it was amazing, and absolutely honored to have been with that band for as long as I was, and experienced all the things that I did with them.
Now, talk about your new project, Akurion. Your album, Comfort With Me. I have to say, this album hit me like a wrecking ball. It's like a roller coaster of death metal. We have a lot of emotion when you hear this violent and good music. So what is the origin of this project?
Yeah, the origin is from Rob Milley and I. Rob and I have been friends for many, many years, and we ended up working. We ended up realizing we were working right down the street from one another. So we started to hang out and go for lunch and just talking music and projects and all this other stuff. And at the time, he had just sort of put the brakes on Neuraxis, and he had some things going on with his family and stuff like that. So he had, he wanted to try some new stuff. He had some new ideas, had some new riffs, and we started chatting. We're like, he's like, I'd like to show you some riffs. And I think I had him over my house, and he showed me some riffs, and I showed him some words that I had, and we started piecing songs together and like arranging. The arrangements, mostly what he had shown up with, was pretty much kept intact. But there's little variations that you can change and stuff like this. So we started working together like that for months. We would get together, and I'd have some words, and we try to fit the words with, without any drum beats, just some ideas of what we would do for drumming. And then we took two of the songs. We took what did we take? We took Year of the Long Pig and Petals from a Rose, eventually Wither to Black. And we took those two songs. I had written some lyrics for both of those, and we had Ollie from Baudouin, from Cataclysm. He ended up putting, if he played the drums, I think he did a drum machine or something. He had played some drum patterns. So the songs actually started there. That's where the meat and potatoes. And I had laid down some vocals over that, and then my computer crashed and it was all lost. So we lost those. But I still, obviously we've been working on these ideas. So we pretty much were okay to move forward. Nothing was like really lost. And then of course after that we pulled Tommy in and Ollie Pinard. And so once we had the four-piece together at that point, we started jamming at City Jamil, and we started to craft the record. We started with those two songs again to get Tommy McKinnon, get Tommy in the know of it, and then I think Ollie had already been practicing like by himself with Rob at that time, and we just started to craft the album, and it took some time, but I don't fuss about personally, and I don't think any of us really fussed about the time that it took to write the record, and the time, of course, for the release of the record. We always had the impression that no matter what happens here, like, we're doing this for us, you know, and if people can catch on to it, then wonderful. But really, ultimately, this was a project for 4 people to put this album together. And yes, the origin started with Rob and I, but the ultimate end result was the 4 of us that put our hearts and put our passions and put our balls behind this record. And you know, for us, I think it's nice to see it from a standpoint of an idea of why don't we get together to a full product. It's something else, and that's I will cherish the years that I spent with these gentlemen to put this record together. Really happy with it.
You do a fucking great job. I have to say this.
Thank you.
I have to say another thing. Leave Them Scars. Wow. Wow. The song is an all-star death metal song. We have the collaboration of Lord Worm, Luc Lemay from Gorguts, and Jean-Marie Leblanc from Vengeful.
That's right.
Are you proud to do a masterpiece with all Legion death metal singer?
You know what? I love that song. It's probably my favorite song on the record. I mean, there's a couple that I really like, but you know that I'm very, very fond of on that record. That's absolutely one of them, and one that I from the start I had seen this as the first song for the record. It just felt right, even though we had deliberated back and forth. We had talked about the length of the song, and is it the right song to start with? Start with a 10-minute long song. And for me, it was always that one. In my mind, this was the opening track of the record, and a lot has to do with the beginning, the first riff, just the stepping into that first opening riff. I love the idea of that, but I also very early on, I had the idea of having that section with Luke and Jean-Marie and Lord Worm to have them have me underneath them basically and put them forward with the Leave Them Scars lyric, and I just love the idea of having 3 different voices plus my voice, 3 legends, and have them be a part of this. It was instantaneous for the 3 of them that I wanted for the record, that we wanted for the record. And quite honestly, it came together very, very smoothly. This was something that I had told, we had spoken to them and said, we want you to be part of this, and we had, we kept them in the loop in terms of what we were doing, and they were absolutely 100% behind it. They really wanted to be a part of it, and we had a couple sessions. We did go with, we went to Luke's place, and we recorded his vocals there. And then we took another session with Jean-Marie and Lord Worm another time. So the 2 of them laid down their tracks later, and all on the same night. So we sort of we had 2 different sessions, I guess, if you will. But regardless, it's very cohesive, and it's exactly what we were. And actually, a mistake. There is a mistake that had come out of that where. Initially, I had the idea of having them do three times to say "Leave Them Scars," and then when we recorded, Luke did his 3, and then when we recorded, because Luke was in the middle, set in the middle of the 3 vocals, and then Jean-Marie was going to be on the back end of the second verse, and then it was on the front end of the first verse. So we switched it around, and this was on purpose. I wanted to switch the arrangement around for who was going to sing where. But when we had initially recorded it, we did it 2 times with those guys instead of 3, and then and for some reason we didn't even quite catch that. And then as we were sitting in the jam room, like as we recorded, we're listening to it. I'm like, fuck, we're supposed to add a 3rd one there. I was like, but you know what? I like this. The fact that it's only 2, so fuck it, let's. So we ended up, obviously keeping that, and but it was just one of those moments of like, oh shit, it dawned on a new day. It was, it was all on the same day. We recorded it the same day, but then it was like, wait a minute, we missed one. And then I was like, oh no, this is perfect. This is exactly the way it's supposed to be. And and I'm very much like that in terms of like if things, if it happens a certain way, then it needs to be that way. I'm not one that's going to hem and haw over. Well, geez, I had initially the idea was this, and it has to be that way. I'm very flexible with my ideas and stuff like that. And if people have other ideas on top of it, we try it, we see. But that was just one that wasn't even a trial. It was just, it happened that way. And then we saw it. We're like, okay, all right, yeah, this actually really works. So
if this is a mistake, I think it's a real good mistake.
Agreed.
Now, time for the funny question. You are from Boston. And when I see you, I never talked to you before. I've seen the big bad Bruins, but you are now in Montreal. So, are you a fan of Bruins again? Did you like it to see you in a big bad Bruins? I think for a lot of people, when you see in Mike DiSalvo, you have to say, "Oh, this guy is so rough, it's so tough. It's a big guy. It's like a bastard." And when we talk to you, you have to say you're a very, very good person.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I am absolutely a Bruins fan, 100%. I am absolutely not a Habs fan. I'm a hockey fan. But the Habs, look, there's been all my life, the Habs and the Bruins. That is the marquee matchup. It is the best rivalry in all of sports. Absolutely, hands down. And I'm not a fan of the Habs at all. I don't. I've been to many games here and many games that they didn't play the Bruins. And generally speaking, let's rephrase that. Every time I am there watching them play another team, I am rooting, no matter who it is, for the other team. So there it is. Definite Bruins fan. I love the Bruins, and I am a huge fan of old school hockey. The brand that it is now, I think, is a pale comparison to what it used to be. I grew up in an era where hockey was, the hockey game broke out at the fights. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's hard when you come from hockey, from that, and you come from from 300 penalty minutes in a game down to 6 penalty minutes in a game like it is now, with no fights and no rough stuff. It's just not the same game. And so I am an absolute proponent of old school hockey. Anyone who knows me knows this, and I will argue that point till the cows come home. Old school hockey. Bring back the goons. Bring back fighting in hockey. Make these $6-10 million players fight. Get these guys to get people out of the seats and excited about hockey again. Because anytime that you see hockey, especially the Bruins against Montreal, there isn't a fan that is sitting down during a fight. So no matter what people say nowadays about, fighting is it's not necessary in hockey. No, it's very necessary in hockey. It's always been a part of hockey. You don't remove that. Those types of games are what created the rivalries and of course the victories, of course, the Stanley Cups, yes. But people went to see Bruins against Montreal, Bruins against Quebec City, Montreal against Quebec, Montreal against Buffalo, Boston against Buffalo. These types of games, people went to go watch those games because they knew that there was going to be some ass kicking in those games. and that is what I love about hockey.
It's like a movie. You have to have the good one and the bad one.
That's right.
All right. And just to close the interview, I know we are now in pandemic. It's really sucks. But the last question is, what is the next for you and the music scene with Akurion and all the scene of music?
Well, I will speak for my projects. Akurion right now is there's been no talk of another album per se. We're still trying to push this because I mean for us, we released the Come Forth to Me on April 10th, I believe, and it was right in the height of the pandemic. So as soon as that had happened, we did see, friends and family and some diehard fans. We were able to sell some records, but it wasn't that much. Now all of a sudden, it seems like there's been a resurgence in sales for it, which is nice to see because I think that record needs to be heard. I think that record needs to be something that is, whether you like it or not, but it needs to be heard. It needs to be part of metal history in the sense of, there's a lot of effort that went into this record. The musicians alone, there is some history behind the musicians, and lots of it. And, so I find it's a record that unfortunately just kind of fell under the scope. But I think we are seeing some more, an increase in, people listening to it and people starting to talk about it again towards the end of the year. We've been on a couple of album of the year lists and things like this. So this is all going to help hopefully get the name out there so people can actually hear it. I mean, there's so many fucking metal fans out there, and there is, I know, only a tiny portion that have actually heard this record, in the grand scheme of things. So I'm really hoping that the record's going to, so for us, we're still sort of sitting on I don't want to say we're on the coattails of the record, but we definitely know there's a lot more room to get this record heard and seen and presented in the metal community. Outside of that, outside of Akurion, we're working on the new Coma Cluster Void. So that's a third record with Coma Cluster Void. This is sort of in the beginning stages of the record, but this one is ongoing at this point. And the other one, I'm not sure if you heard of this yet, but I have another project with Pat Hamlin from Gorguts, of course, okay, and Matt Barabee from Terramobile and Alex Hebert from Ages. Actually, Alex is the one who recorded the Akurion record. And so those three guys, we got a project called Uncle Stalin and the Communist Joy. So Uncle with the K, and actually the K's and the Communist is K as well. Both K's are AK-47s, right? So it's a cool name for a very, very, very intense record. Right now we have all the drums recorded for it and most of the guitars. I just recorded one track for vocals, the first track, and right now we're running at 6 songs. We might do 7 to pull it out of the EP hemisphere and put it into a full-length situation. So we're probably going to do another song for it, release it 7 songs and, hit somewhere in the 30-minute range. And this shit is brutal. It's intense and it's groovy as fuck. Just wait till you hear the stuff. It's crazy. It's chaos, but if you know Matt, you know how he plays guitar. He's playing a 9-string guitar, so the bottom end, everything that's bottom end, and there's a ton of it, is super heavy. So that's what we have going on right now. So I mean, in terms of the pandemic, you ask about that. It hasn't slowed me down per se in terms of creativity and in terms of writing. I've got a lot of things going on. Right now I'm putting together a book as well for putting together some poems and lyrics and some just random muses about anything, and I'm putting this book together, and I got these 2 different projects happening, and I'm doing for a COVID covers album or tracks. I don't even know if it's going to be an album, but I'm doing that with some guys. I'm going to record the song Hung from Napalm Death off of Fear, Despair, and that record. So that's fun too. I love that record, and for me to play that song is an honor. So I mean, it's for sure none of. Oh, it sucks. Don't get me wrong. I can't stand this shit. I'm way past it. I'm ready to move on here. But in terms of keeping the flow going and working, I've been mostly on point with it. Sometimes I have down times, but I've been keeping busy with that and hoping that this shit will be gone. And we can get back to going to shows. I miss shows terribly,
I think a lot of people miss shows.
It's my life, for God's sakes. Like that's my outlet. Go to some pubs, go to shows, and I can't do either one of those things now. So none of us can. So hopefully this will be this nightmare will be. Never forgotten, obviously, but hopefully it will dissipate and we can just get on with our regular lives. Because this shit isn't normal. This is the new abnormal to me, and I think we need to get past this and get back to being ourselves.
We need to close this fucking nightmare. Going to all shows with all your new projects, and I read a lot of time on Facebook. Take my money!
Well said, sir. Well said.
Mike DiSalvo, thanks for your time. It's an honor for me. It's always a pleasure. So if I have to talk again, it will be a pleasure again.
Gabe, absolutely, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for putting the spotlight on these projects. I really appreciate it, and it's an absolute honor to speak with you as well. So, cheers.